All right, strap in everyone, because this deep dive is going to be a wild ride. We're going deep, really deep into the future society. And get this, we might be closer than we think to using AI to make it more stable.
More stable, yeah. But probably not in the way you'd expect. We're not talking about some, Orwellian AI overlords calling all the shots, keeping everyone in line. The stuff you sent me from places like uscore.info and umodel.org, they're suggesting something a lot more, nuanced, using AI to actually encode and uphold shared values.
Okay, well, hold on a sec. AI is some kind of societal referee. How would that even work in the real world?
Well, these sources argue that honestly, a lot of our current systems, especially online, they're just not doing a great job promoting what's truly good for society. They talk about how algorithms, on social media, can be manipulated to silence certain voices and control. The whole narrative.
You mean how some posts get buried, way down in the feed?
Yeah.
Just because they criticize a certain politician or idea, even if it's totally valid criticism?
Right.
I've definitely felt like that's happened.
Exactly. And the sources, uscore.info especially, they say this kind of manipulation, it creates a super fragile stability. They make this really striking analogy, a hydraulic press, right? Balanced precariously on top of a pile of dynamite, seems stable until...
Oh, wow. Okay, I get it. One wrong move and kaboom.
Exactly. Power dynamics shifting like that, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's an image that's going to stick with me for a while. But I'm still not quite seeing how AI fits into all of this. Does it become the one shifting the weight on that dynamite?
Not exactly. It's more about AI being used not to control us, but to give us radical transparency. Imagine a world where AI is used to fight corruption, in something as maybe boring sounding as public procurement.
Public procurement. Okay, I'll admit that doesn't exactly sound like a nail biter, but I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Oh, trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds. Think about it. What if contracts were awarded based only on, who actually deserves it based on merit, not on who you know or what favors you can pull? AI could analyze every single bid, making sure the process is truly objective and fair.
So no more shady backroom deals going on because the AI is watching like a hawk, making sure everything is above board. I like the sound of that. A totally level playing field. But, we weren't talking about values before. How does AI actually enforce those in a much broader sense?
Now that is where things get really, really fascinating. The sources argue that we as a society need to first define what our core values actually are, what matters most to us. Once we've figured that out, then AI can actually help uphold those values across all different parts of society.
Whoa, hold up a minute. Figuring out what an entire society values, that sounds ridiculously hard. Where do you even begin with something that complex?
It's definitely ambitious, I won't lie, but these sources, they actually offer a possible roadmap. Imagine, political parties actually coming out and openly declaring their core values. Then, public forums and platforms, places like uscore.info, they host debates and discussions so people can understand each other's viewpoints and hopefully find some common ground. And finally, secure voting systems, maybe even AI-powered ones, could be used to figure out which values have the most public support.
So it's like crowdsourcing our values, but with this added layer of transparency and security, thanks to AI. That's actually a pretty innovative approach.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure everyone's voice is actually heard in that process? Not everyone is on these online forums or feels comfortable, voting.
You're totally right. That is a super critical point, and inclusivity is absolutely crucial to make this work. The sources don't really get into the specifics of how to make sure every single voice is heard, but it's definitely a challenge. And it's one that would require a lot of careful thought and some really innovative solutions. Maybe AI could even play a role in identifying and addressing those participation gaps, making sure everyone has a seat in the table when we're talking about shaping our future. But, let's say we figure that part out. Let's talk about what happens once those values are established. How does AI actually put them into practice? And not just in, making procurement transparent.
So we figured out our values. We've got the AI all set up. It's armed with these values. What next? Does it start making decisions for us? We could talk about a digital dictator situation.
Not a dictator, no, thank goodness. It's more about, changing the rules of the game, making it harder for the bad guys to mess things up. The sources actually use this term mutri to describe these people or groups who are always trying to game the system for their own benefit.
Mutri, interesting. They do sound like a real pain in the neck.
Yeah.
But okay, how would an AI actually stop them? It's not like you can arrest them, right?
Right. It's not about, direct intervention. Think of it more like neutralizing their tactics. Imagine this AI algorithms running in the background, constantly looking for and flagging things like misinformation, propaganda, any attempt to manipulate people. The information we see would then be more, trustworthy, more objective, and a lot less susceptible to, shady tactics.
So it's kind of like having a built-in BS detector for the internet.
Yeah.
Making it tougher for these Mutri to spread their lies and warp reality.
Exactly.
Although, does that take a little bit of the fun out of a good conspiracy theory?
Maybe a little, yeah. But think of the benefits. With more reliable information, we could make much better decisions as a society, have more productive conversations, and we'd be less vulnerable to manipulation. And it wouldn't just be about filtering out the bad stuff. It's also about highlighting different perspectives and encouraging real, genuine dialogue.
Makes sense. So it's not that the AI is deciding what we should think. It's more like it's giving us the tools to think for ourselves.
Yeah.
But more critically and with access to a better information.
Exactly. Empowerment, not control.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And this whole system, it wouldn't just be online, right? The sources also talked about using AI in the justice system. Now that sounds like we're stepping straight into an episode of Star Trek.
We are. Imagine a future where AI helps analyze legal cases, making sure everything is fair and reducing bias in court decisions. It could analyze mountains of data precedents, sentencing guidelines, demographic trends, and then flag any inconsistencies or potential instances of prejudice.
So no more getting off easy just because you're well connected or the judge woke up on the wrong side of the bed. That sounds incredibly idealistic, but if I'm being honest, also a little bit scary. What if the AI messes up? Or even worse, what if someone hacks the system and changes those values? That seems like opening up a whole new can of worms.
You're right to point that out. Those are definitely serious questions. The sources do acknowledge that using a system like this would require super strong security measures and constant checks to prevent misuse. And even then, there's always the risk of unintended consequences, right? We're talking about really powerful technology. We have to approach it carefully and with our eyes wide open.
No, not a silver bullet, more like
a work in progress. A really, really ambitious work in progress with huge potential for good, but also some real risks we can't ignore. Exactly. It's not about blindly trusting AI to save the day. It's about having these tough conversations, exploring the potential upside, but also being really clear-eyed about the risks. It's about understanding what AI can do and then figuring out how we use its power responsibly, ethically, for the greater good.
This whole concept of encoding values into AI, it's honestly mind-blowing. But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. We touched on AI in government and the justice system. But what about our everyday lives? How could this play out in the decisions we make every day? We talked about political candidates earlier. Could AI actually help us be more informed voters?
Yeah, political candidates, now there's an area where I think we can all agree a little less hot air and a little more, actual information would be a good thing. How would AI actually help us cut through the noise?
Okay, so picture this. Instead of just going with your gut, or let's be honest, being swayed by the slickest ad campaign, you've got this AI-powered tool. It analyzes candidates based on how well their policies and their track records actually line up with those shared values we were talking about earlier. So it's like having a super-powered fact checker for politicians. Where do I sign up? But hold on a second, how do we know this AI isn't biased itself? Someone had to program it right, and that someone, they've got their own opinions, their own worldview.
That's the million-dollar question, and the sources really hammer home the importance of transparency. We're talking about involving ethicists, social scientists, people from all walks of life to make sure the AI isn't secretly pushing one agenda or another.
So it all comes back to the human element, right? Building these systems in a way that's responsible and ethical, not just letting the tech run wild.
Exactly. It takes constant dialogue and a real commitment to making sure this technology actually benefits everyone.
This all sounds incredible, maybe even a little too good to be true. Are we talking about some distant future here, or is this something that could actually happen in our lifetime?
That's the big question, isn't it? The sources don't give us a specific timeline, but they make it clear that this isn't like flipping a switch and boom, everything's different. It's going to take time, development, debate, constantly refining the technology, and most importantly, building trust.
Trust, that's the key word, right? Because let's be real, a lot of people are still pretty wary of AI. Giving it this kind of potential power, even if it's for a good cause, it's bound to make some folks nervous.
And those concerns are totally valid. We can't just leap headfirst into this AI-powered future without thinking through the implications and addressing those concerns head-on.
So it's not just about the tech itself, it's about how we as a society decide to use it. The choices we make today, they're going to determine what our future looks like.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about making sure AI aligns with our values, promotes fairness, and ultimately helps create a better, more stable world.
Wow, so much to think about. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the potential of AI. Not just the amazing possibilities, but also the risks. It's a complicated issue, that's for sure, but one thing's crystal clear. This is a conversation we need to be having right now. What do you think? Are we on the verge of a more stable, equitable future? Or are we stepping into the unknown? Head over to our website and let us know your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious.